My name is Arlene, and I am 58 years old. Last Thursday evening, my daughter called me with that familiar sweet tone she only uses when she needs something. She wanted me to pay for her birthday gala at a five-star hotel. 40 guests. $30,000. She assumed I would simply obey. What Kristen does not know is that I have been keeping a secret for 15 years. A secret that would change everything she believed about her own mother. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop a comment with your city or country. If you have ever felt invisible to someone you love, hit that like button right now. And subscribe if you want to see how this story ends. Have you ever been treated like a servant by your own child? Stay with me because what happened at that birthday party shocked everyone in the room. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how we got here. I live in a modest two-bedroom house in the suburbs of New Jersey. The paint on the shutters is starting to peel, and the garden needs more attention than I give it these days. My car is a 2015 Toyota Camry with a small dent on the rear bumper that I never bothered to fix. I shop at discount stores and clip coupons from the Sunday paper. To anyone looking from the outside, I am just another retired woman living on a fixed income, counting pennies and watching television alone in the evenings. But that is not the full picture. 15 years ago, my husband Frank passed away from pancreatic cancer. He was 51 years old, and I was 43. We had been married for 22 years, and suddenly I was alone with a 17-year-old daughter who blamed me for everything wrong in her life. Frank had a modest life insurance policy, about $200,000, plus our savings of another $50,000. Most widows in my situation would have used that money to survive, to pay bills, to get through the grief. I did something different. You see, Frank and I used to talk about investments late at night after Kristen went to bed. He always said I had a sharp mind for numbers, a gift for seeing patterns others missed. He encouraged me to study the stock market, to learn about venture capital, to understand how money really works. When he died, I took those lessons and put them into action. I started small, investing in a few technology startups that nobody believed in. One of them became worth $50 million within 5 years. I reinvested everything, learned more, took calculated risks. By the time Kristen graduated from college, I had quietly built Horizon Ventures, a venture capital fund with assets under management exceeding $300 million. But here is the thing. I never told anyone. Not my neighbors, not my friends, and especially not my daughter. Why would I hide something like that? The answer is simple and painful at the same time. I wanted to know if my daughter loved me for who I am, or for what I could give her. When Frank was alive, we lived in a small apartment on the east side of Newark. We drove used cars and took vacations to the Jersey Shore instead of Europe. Kristen grew up watching her classmates wear designer clothes and carry expensive phones, while she wore hand-me-downs and shared a phone plan with her parents. She resented us for it, even though we gave her everything we could. After Frank died, Kristen became even more distant. She blamed me for not having more money saved, for not giving her the life she thought she deserved. She worked her way through college on scholarships and student loans, and I let her. Not because I could not help, but because I wanted to see if struggle would build her character. It did not. Instead, Kristen climbed the corporate ladder with a chip on her shoulder and a burning desire to prove she was better than her humble beginnings. She became the marketing director at Sterling & Associates, a prestigious financial consulting firm in Manhattan. She married Derek, a man from a middle-class family who pretends to be upper class. They rent a penthouse they cannot afford and drive leased luxury cars. And through it all, Kristen treated me like an embarrassment to be hidden away. When she introduced me to colleagues, she would mumble my name and quickly change the subject. At her wedding 3 years ago, I was seated at a back table while Derek's parents sat at the head table with the bride and groom. I wasn't included in the family photographs. When I asked why, Kristen just shrugged and said the photographer only had time for immediate family. I stood there in my best dress, the one I had saved for months to buy, and watched my only child pretend I did not exist. That night, I cried alone in my hotel room. I asked myself if I should tell her the truth, if knowing about the money would change how she saw me. But deep down, I already knew the answer. If I told her, she would suddenly become the loving daughter she never was, and that love would be as fake as Derek's designer watch. So I stayed silent. I kept living in my small house, driving my old car, wearing my discount clothes, and I watched, waiting to see if Kristen would ever value me for something other than what I could provide. 15 years passed, and nothing changed, until that phone call last Thursday. The call came at 7:30 in the evening. I was standing at the stove stirring a pot of vegetable soup when my phone buzzed on the counter. Kristen's name flashed on the screen, and I felt the familiar mix of hope and dread that always accompanied her calls. I answered on the third ring. "Hello, sweetheart." Her voice was honey-sweet, the tone she reserves for moments when she wants something from me. "Mom, how are you doing? I have been thinking about you." I knew immediately that she had not been thinking about me at all. Kristen only calls when she needs something. But I played along, stirring my soup and listening to her chatter about nothing for 3 minutes before she got to the point. "So, Mom, my birthday is coming up next Saturday. I am turning 33, can you believe it?" I smiled despite myself. Of course I could believe it. I was there when she was born, when she took her first steps, when she lost her first tooth. I remember every birthday, every milestone, every moment she has tried so hard to forget. "I am planning something special this year," she continued. "A birthday gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel. You know the one, right? The 5-star place in Midtown Manhattan?" I knew it well. The Grand Meridian was one of the most exclusive hotels in the city. A single night in their basic suite cost more than some people earn in a month. Their ballroom was legendary, the site of celebrity weddings and Fortune 500 galas. "That sounds lovely," I said carefully. "How many guests are you expecting?" "Oh, just 40 or so. Mostly colleagues from work, some of Derek's business associates. Jonathan Mercer will be there. He is the CEO of my company, Mom. This is a big deal for my career." "I see. And you are calling to invite me?" There was a pause on the line, the kind of pause that told me everything I needed to know. "Well, actually, Mom, I was hoping you could help with the arrangements. You know how busy I am with work. I was thinking maybe you could call the hotel, set everything up, coordinate with the florist and the caterer. You are so good at that kind of thing." My hand tightened around the wooden spoon. "And the cost?" Kristen laughed, a light, dismissive sound. "Oh, it is not that much. Maybe 25 to 30,000 for everything. I was hoping you could put it on your credit card for now. Derek and I will pay you back after his bonus comes through in February. 25 to $30,000. She said it like she was asking me to pick up groceries." "Kristen," I began. She cut me off. "I know it sounds like a lot, but this is really important to me. Having Mr. Mercer at my birthday party could change everything for my career. I need everything to be perfect." "Please, Mom." I closed my eyes. "I have more than $300 million under management. I could write a check for 30,000 without blinking." But that was not the point. "Let me think about it," I said. Kristen sighed, and I heard the irritation creeping into her voice. "What is there to think about? It is my birthday. I am your only daughter. Can you not just do this one thing for me?" The words stung more than she knew. One thing. As if the past 33 years of sacrifice meant nothing. As if I had not given her everything I had, even when I had nothing. "I will let you know tomorrow," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Fine." She was annoyed now, not bothering to hide it. "I will send you an email with all the details. Just make sure you book the Sapphire Ballroom. It is the second largest one they have. And tell them we need the premium catering package." She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood in my kitchen soup forgotten on the stove and stared at the phone in my hand. My daughter had just asked me to spend $30,000 and countless hours of labor to plan her party. And not once had she said please in a way that meant anything. Not once had she asked how I was really doing. Not once had she mentioned where I would sit at this grand event she was planning. The email arrived 20 minutes later. 2 full pages of demands disguised as requests. Specific flowers that had to be imported. A particular brand of champagne that cost $200 a bottle. A 5-course meal with dietary accommodations for guests I had never met. And at the bottom, almost as an afterthought, a seating chart. My name was listed at table 9, the farthest table from the main stage. The note beside it read, "Mom does not need to be near the front. She will be more comfortable in the back." I read that line 3 times, making sure I understood it correctly. My daughter did not want me near her important guests. She wanted me to pay for everything, plan everything, and then disappear into the background like hired help. I put down my phone and walked to the window. Outside, the streetlights were flickering on, casting pale yellow circles on the empty sidewalk. I thought about Frank, about what he would say if he could see what our daughter had become. I thought about all the years I had stayed silent, hoping she would change. And I realized something important. Hope without action is just wishful thinking. If I wanted things to change, I would have to be the one to change them. The next few days were filled with memories I had tried to bury. I sat in my living room looking through old photo albums and remembered all the times Kristen had made me feel small. It did not start recently. The seeds were planted years ago, and I had been watering them with my silence. 3 years ago, at her wedding, I arrived early to help with last-minute preparations. I had sewn her flower girl's dress by hand, spent weeks crafting the perfect centerpieces, because Kristen said she could not afford a professional florist. I was so proud to contribute, so happy to be part of her special day. But when the photographer arrived, Derek's mother, Eleanor, pulled Kristen aside. I watched from across the room as they whispered together, glancing in my direction. Then Kristen walked over to me with an apologetic smile that did not reach her eyes. "Mom, we decided to just do immediate family for the formal photos. You understand, right? There is just not enough time to include everyone." I stood there in my carefully chosen dress, the one I had saved for 6 months to afford, and nodded. "Of course, sweetheart, I understand." But I did not understand. How was I not immediate family? I had carried her for 9 months, nursed her through fevers, sat with her through nightmares. I was her mother. But in that moment, I was erased. The reception was worse. Derek's parents sat at the head table with the bride and groom. I sat at table 12 between Derek's college roommate, whom I had never met, and an elderly aunt who spent the entire evening complaining about the chicken. When Kristen gave her speech, she thanked everyone. Derek's parents for their generous contribution to the wedding, her friends for their unwavering support, her colleagues for believing in her. At the very end, almost as an afterthought, she said, "And of course, thanks to my mom for being here." That was it. 4 words. 33 years of sacrifice reduced to 4 words. I left the reception early, telling anyone who asked that I had a headache. I drove back to my hotel, sat on the edge of the bed, and cried until I had no tears left. That night, I almost told her. I almost picked up the phone and said, "Your mother is not some poor widow you need to be ashamed of. Your mother built an empire while you were busy pretending she did not exist." But I did not, because I knew that if I told her, everything would change. She would suddenly become attentive and loving. She would visit every weekend and call every day, and none of it would be real. So I swallowed my pain and kept my secret. The pattern continued after the wedding. Every holiday, every family gathering, I was an afterthought. Kristen would invite me out of obligation, then spend the entire time with Derek's family, while I sat alone in corners pretending I did not notice. Last Christmas was particularly painful. Kristen invited me to dinner at their penthouse, then seated me at the far end of a table meant for 6. Derek's parents sat on either side of the couple laughing at inside jokes and discussing vacation plans I had not been told about. When I tried to join the conversation, Kristen gave me a look that clearly said, "Please be quiet, Mom. You are embarrassing me." I left before dessert was served. The day after Kristen sent her email about the birthday party, I called my sister Margaret in Boston. We talk every few weeks, and she is one of the few people who knows pieces of my real life. Not the full picture, but enough to understand. I told her about Kristen's demands, about the seating arrangement, about being treated like hired help for my own daughter's party. Margaret was furious. "Arlene, this has gone on long enough. You have built something incredible, and you are letting that ungrateful girl walk all over you. When are you going to stand up for yourself? I do not want to use money to fix our relationship," I said. That would prove her right. That would mean the only thing valuable about me is my bank account. Margaret sighed. "I am not saying buy her love. I am saying show her who you really are. Not to brag, not to punish, but to make her see that she has been wrong about you this whole time. Maybe then she will finally wake up." I thought about her words long after we hung up. Later that evening, I called Sophie, my personal assistant at Horizon Ventures. Sophie has been with me for 8 years. She knows everything about my business life, and she is fiercely loyal. I asked her about Sterling and Associates, the company where Kristen works. "Oh yes," Sophie said. "They are one of our strongest portfolio companies. We invested $12 million in their Series B round 4 years ago. Jonathan Mercer runs a tight ship. They are preparing for a major investor meeting next quarter." I nodded slowly, pieces clicking together in my mind. "Tell me more about Jonathan Mercer. He is brilliant. Harvard MBA, 20 years in finance before founding Sterling. He is very particular about relationships, always wants to know who is backing his company. He has been asking to meet the principals at Horizon for years, but we have always kept things at arm's length. Has he met me? Never in person. He has only dealt with our legal team and investment managers. But he knows Horizon Ventures is his largest investor. He would do almost anything to strengthen that relationship." I thanked Sophie and hung up, my mind racing. Kristen was throwing a party to impress Jonathan Mercer. She wanted to advance her career by schmoozing the CEO. She was using my money to fund this networking event. And Jonathan Mercer spent his days trying to please the anonymous investor who owned a significant stake in his company. That anonymous investor was me. The irony was almost too much to bear. I spent 3 days thinking about what to do. The easy path would be to simply refuse. Tell Kristen I could not afford such an extravagant party. Endure her disappointment and resentment. Continue living in the shadows. But I was tired of the shadows. I was tired of being invisible. Tired of being treated like an embarrassment. Tired of watching my daughter become someone I did not recognize. Margaret was right. It was time to show Kristen the truth. Not to punish her, but to wake her up. To force her to see me, really see me, for the first time in her adult life. I called Carl, my attorney and one of my oldest friends. Carl has been my legal advisor since the early days of Horizon Ventures. He is the only person outside of work who knows the full extent of my wealth. I told him my plan. He listened without interruption, then let out a low whistle. "Arlene, are you sure about this? There is no going back once you do this." "I know, but I cannot keep living this way, Carl. I need to know if there is anything left of the daughter I raised, and if there is not, I need to stop pretending there might be." Carl was silent for a moment. Then he said, "All right, let us make it happen." The next morning I called Kristen. She answered on the first ring, clearly expecting this call. "Mom, did you look at the email? Can you make the reservations today? Yes, sweetheart, I said calmly. I looked at everything. I will take care of it. Her relief was palpable. Oh, thank goodness. I knew you would come through. Just remember the Sapphire Ballroom and make sure they know it is a VIP event. Consider it done, I said. You are the best mom. I will see you at the party. Okay? She hung up before I could respond. I smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who has finally decided to stop being a victim. I picked up the phone and dialed the Grand Meridian Hotel. But I did not ask for the Sapphire Ballroom. Instead, I asked for the Regency Ballroom, the largest and most exclusive venue in the entire hotel. Good afternoon, said the events coordinator. The Regency Ballroom is our premier space. It accommodates up to 200 guests and requires a minimum spend of $75,000. May I ask who is calling? This is Arlene Mitchell, I said using my full legal name for the first time in years. I am the founder and principal owner of Horizon Ventures. I would like to book the Regency Ballroom for this Saturday evening. There was a pause on the line. Then, Ms. Mitchell, it would be our absolute honor. Let me transfer you to our director of events. Within an hour, everything was arranged. The Regency Ballroom would be transformed into a spectacular celebration space. Fresh flowers imported from Holland. A 7-course tasting menu prepared by a Michelin-starred chef. Vintage champagne. Live music from a 12-piece orchestra. Total cost $62,000. But here was the key. The reservation was not under Kristen's name or mine. It was under Horizon Ventures. And the invitation list which I provided personally included every single person Kristen had invited, plus a few additions of my own. I also made sure of one crucial detail: the Sapphire Ballroom. The room Kristen thought she had booked would remain completely empty. When she arrived with her guests, she would find nothing but bare walls and vacant tables. Then I made one more call. This one was to Jonathan Mercer himself. I had never spoken to him directly. All our interactions had gone through intermediaries. But Sophie gave me his private cell number, and I dialed it without hesitation. He answered on the second ring. Jonathan Mercer speaking. Mr. Mercer. This is Arlene. I am the founder of Horizon Ventures. The silence on the other end told me everything. He knew who Horizon Ventures was. He knew we held a significant stake in his company, and he knew that speaking directly to the principal investor was extremely rare. Ms. Arlene, he finally said, this is unexpected. What can I do for you? I understand you have been invited to a birthday party this Saturday. One of your employees, Kristen, is hosting it. Yes, I received the invitation. I was planning to attend. Good. I will also be at that event. When you see me, I would like you to greet me as you normally would. Nothing theatrical, just your natural response to seeing your primary investor. He was quiet for a moment. May I ask what this is about? Family matters, I said simply. Personal family matters that require a moment of truth. To his credit, Jonathan did not ask more questions. I understand. I will see you Saturday then. I thanked him and hung up. The final piece of preparation was myself. I drove to Manhattan and walked into a boutique I had never entered before. The saleswoman looked at me in my plain clothes and discount sneakers, and I could see her calculating whether I was worth her time. I need a gown for a formal event, I said, something elegant. Red, if you have it. Her skepticism faded when I handed her my Black American Express card. Within 2 hours, I had selected a stunning crimson evening gown, matching heels and jewelry that cost more than my car. I booked an appointment at a high-end salon for Saturday afternoon. Hair, makeup, the works. Margaret flew in from Boston on Friday night. She stayed at my house helping me prepare, reminding me of why I was doing this. This is not about revenge, I told her as she helped me try on the dress. This is about truth. She zipped up the back and stepped away. I turned to face the mirror and barely recognized myself. The woman staring back was not the invisible mother Kristen had dismissed for years. She was powerful, elegant, confident. She was someone worth knowing. Saturday arrived with bright winter sunshine streaming through my bedroom window. I spent the morning reviewing every detail with Sophie by phone. The ballroom was ready. The caterers had arrived at noon. The flowers were being arranged as we spoke. At 2:00 I drove to the hotel in my old Camry. The valet looked confused when I pulled up to the grand entrance, but I just smiled and handed him the keys. Let him wonder. Inside, I went straight to the Regency ballroom to inspect everything personally. The transformation was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across silk tablecloths. Enormous arrangements of white roses and lilies filled the room with fragrance. A stage had been set up at the far end with a banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Kristen. From someone who loves you more than you know." I made a few minor adjustments, spoke with the head caterer, and confirmed the timing with the orchestra conductor. Everything was perfect. Then I went upstairs to my suite to get ready. Margaret met me there, and together we transformed me from the frumpy mother Kristen expected into someone entirely different. My hair was swept into an elegant updo. My makeup was subtle but sophisticated. The red dress hugged my figure in all the right places. When I looked in the mirror, Margaret came to stand beside me. "Kristen will not know who you are," she said softly. "That is the point," I replied. "She has never known who I am." At 5:45 guests began arriving at the Grand Meridian. I watched from a window on the mezzanine level as limousines and town cars pulled up to the entrance. Men in tuxedos and women in evening gowns streamed through the lobby. At exactly 6:00, I saw a white Cadillac pull up. Kristen stepped out first wearing a silver dress that probably cost 2 months of my fake salary. Derek followed looking smug and self-important. They walked toward the entrance arm in arm, confident and glowing. They had no idea what awaited them inside. I made my way down to the lobby level and positioned myself near the entrance to the Regency ballroom. I could see the confusion beginning to ripple through the arriving guests. They were checking their invitations, looking at room numbers, wondering why they had been directed away from the Sapphire Ballroom. Then I heard Kristen's voice, high-pitched and panicked. "What do you mean it is empty? I booked this room weeks ago." I moved closer, staying out of sight, and watched as my daughter confronted a nervous hotel staff member. "I am sorry, ma'am. There is no reservation under your name for the Sapphire Ballroom. However, your guests are on the list for an event in the Regency Ballroom." Kristen's face went pale. "Regency. That is impossible. I did not book the Regency. That is the most expensive room in the hotel." Derek grabbed her arm. "Just go with it. Someone obviously made a mistake, but if there is a party waiting, let us not make a scene." They followed the staff member down the corridor, gathering their bewildered guests along the way. I watched them approach the double doors of the Regency ballroom, Kristen's expression a mixture of confusion and growing dread. The doors swung open. For a moment, nobody moved. They just stood there, staring at the magnificent space before them. The chandeliers, the flowers, the orchestra playing softly in the corner, the tables set with fine china and crystal glasses. Kristen's mouth fell open. "I did not," she started. "Who did this?" The guests began filtering in, murmuring among themselves about the unexpected upgrade. Jonathan Mercer entered with his wife, looking around with appreciation at the elegant setup. "This is quite impressive," he said, to no one in particular. "Someone went to considerable trouble." That was my cue. I stepped out from behind a pillar near the stage, my red dress catching the light. I walked slowly toward the center of the room, my heels clicking on the polished floor. Kristen saw me first, or rather she saw a woman in a beautiful red dress walking toward her. She did not recognize me. How could she? She had never bothered to really look at me. But Jonathan Mercer recognized me immediately. He had done his research after our phone call. He had found photos of me from industry conferences and investor meetings. He knew exactly who I was. He stepped forward, his face breaking into a genuine smile. "Ms. Arlene, what a pleasure to finally meet you in person." He extended his hand, then seemed to think better of it and offered a slight bow instead. "I must say, it is an honor to have the founder of Horizon Ventures here tonight." The room went silent. Kristen's head snapped toward Jonathan, then toward me. Her face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally, shocked recognition. "Mom," she whispered. Her voice cracked on the single syllable. I smiled at Jonathan first, shaking his hand warmly. "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Mercer. Thank you for coming." Then I turned to face my daughter. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said quietly. Kristen could not speak. She stood frozen, her silver dress suddenly looking cheap compared to the opulence surrounding her. Derek stood behind her, equally stunned, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The other guests had begun to whisper. I heard fragments of their conversations. Horizon Ventures, the anonymous investor, Kristen's mother. One of the senior directors, a man I recognized from the company photos Sophie had shown me, approached cautiously. "Excuse me, Ms. Arlene, I had no idea you were connected to Kristen. This is quite a revelation." "I suppose it is," I replied calmly. "But tonight is not about business. Tonight is about family." I looked at Kristen, still standing motionless in the middle of her own birthday party. "Perhaps you would like to step outside with me for a moment," I said gently. "We have a lot to talk about." The balcony overlooking Central Park was empty except for the two of us. The city lights sparkled below, and the cold December air bit at my exposed shoulders, but I barely felt it. Kristen stood with her back to me, arms wrapped around herself. Her shoulders shook, and I knew she was crying. Why, she finally whispered, "Why did you never tell me?" I watched her silhouette against the city lights. "Because I needed to know if you could love me without it." She turned, then her makeup streaked with tears. "What does that even mean?" "It means I have been waiting for 32 years for my daughter to see me as something other than an embarrassment or a burden. I have been waiting for you to call me just to talk, not because you need money or a favor. I have been waiting for you to include me in your life because you want me there, not because you feel obligated." Kristen flinched as if I had struck her. "Mom, I never meant to." I held up my hand. "Let me finish. After your father died, I could have used that insurance money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Instead, I took a risk. I invested, it grew, it built something significant. I did it for you, Kristen. I did it because I wanted you to have options. Opportunities, a future without financial worry. Then why did you let me struggle?" she demanded. "Why did you let me take out student loans and work part-time jobs when you could have helped?" "Because I wanted to see what kind of person you would become without money being a factor. I wanted to believe that you would grow into someone kind, someone grateful, someone who valued people over possessions." I paused, letting the words sink in. "But you did not," I continued quietly. "You grew into someone who measures worth by wealth. Someone who hides her mother at parties because she is ashamed of her simple clothes. Someone who asks me to plan and pay for her birthday celebration while seating me at the back table so I do not embarrass her in front of her boss." Kristen covered her face with her hands. "Oh, God. Oh, God, Mom, I am so sorry." I watched her cry, feeling the old familiar ache in my chest. But this time it was different. This time I was not the one feeling small. "Sorry is a word," I said. "What I need to see is change, real change. Not because you found out I have money, but because you finally understand what you have been doing." Kristen looked up, her eyes red and swollen. How do I even begin to fix this?" I stepped closer and took her hands in mine. They were cold and trembling. You start by being honest with yourself. You ask yourself why you needed to hide your mother. You think about every time you made me feel invisible, and you let yourself feel the weight of that. And then if you truly want a relationship with me, you prove it with your actions, not your words. Actions. What kind of actions? You call me because you want to hear my voice, not because you need something. You visit me because you miss me, not because there is a holiday. You introduce me to your friends as your mother, with pride, not with shame. You let me be part of your life because you value me, not because you just discovered I am worth $300 million. Kristen stared at me, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I do value you, Mom. I know I have not shown it, but I do. Then show me, I said simply. Starting now. We stood there in the cold for a long moment, neither of us speaking. Then Kristen did something she had not done in years. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, burying her face in my shoulder. I am so sorry, she sobbed. I am so sorry. I held her tightly, feeling the tension of 15 years begin to slowly release. I know, sweetheart. I know. When we finally separated, I wiped the tears from her cheeks with my thumb. Your guests are waiting, I said. And you have mascara running down your face. Go to the restroom and clean up, then come back and enjoy your birthday party. Will you stay? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. I smiled. I will be at the head table, where I should have been all along. We walked back inside together. Jonathan Mercer was waiting near the entrance, trying to look casual but clearly curious about what had transpired. I approached him and extended my hand. Mr. Mercer, thank you for your discretion. I apologize for the dramatic evening. He shook my hand warmly. No apology necessary, Ms. Arlene. Family matters are always complicated. I am just glad I could be here to witness whatever this was. I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in months. I suppose it was a bit theatrical, but sometimes that is what it takes. Kristen returned from the restroom. Her makeup repaired, her composure restored. She walked directly to me and took my arm. Everyone, she said, her voice carrying across the room. I would like to properly introduce you to someone very important. This is my mother, Arlene, the founder of Horizon Ventures and the most incredible woman I know. The room erupted in applause. Some of it was probably motivated by professional ambition, people wanting to curry favor with a major investor, but some of it was genuine. I could see it in their faces. The surprise, the admiration, the respect. For the first time in years, I did not feel invisible. Derek approached cautiously, his earlier smugness completely evaporated. Ms. Arlene, I had no idea. I want you to know how much I respect. I held up my hand, stopping him mid-sentence. Derek, let me give you some advice. Respect should not depend on the size of someone's bank account. I was the same person yesterday that I am today. The only thing that changed is your knowledge of my net worth. Think about what that says about you. He had the decency to look ashamed. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations, champagne toasts and meaningful glances between me and my daughter. I sat at the head table right next to Kristen, exactly where a mother belongs. At midnight, as the party wound down, Kristen found me near the coat check. Mom, she said quietly, can I come visit you tomorrow? Not for any reason, just to talk. I smiled and pulled her into a hug. I would like that very much. The weeks following the party were tentative at first. Trust is not rebuilt in a single evening, no matter how dramatic the revelation. But Kristen kept her word. She called me 3 days after the party just to chat. No requests, no demands. Just a daughter asking her mother about her day. We talked for an hour about nothing important, and it was the best conversation we had in years. She visited the following weekend, driving her fancy car to my modest house without complaint. We sat in my little kitchen and drank coffee from chipped mugs, and she did not once look around with embarrassment or disdain. She asked questions, real questions, about her father, about our early years together, about how I built Horizon Ventures from insurance money and determination, about why I kept it secret for so long. I answered honestly, without bitterness. I told her about the loneliness of the past 15 years, about watching her wedding from a back table, about leaving Christmas dinner early because no one seemed to notice I was there. She cried. I cried. We held hands across my kitchen table and grieved for all the lost years between us. Slowly, things began to change. Kristen started setting boundaries with Derek. She told him she would no longer pretend that money and status were the most important things in life. She would no longer hide her mother or apologize for her humble roots. Derek did not take it well. Their marriage, which had always been based more on ambition than affection, began to crumble. By February, they had separated. By April, Kristen had filed for divorce. She moved out of the expensive penthouse and into a modest apartment that she could actually afford on her own salary. She sold her leased luxury car and bought something practical. She started living within her means, just like I had pretended to do all those years. But the difference was, she was doing it by choice. She was choosing authenticity over appearance, substance over show. One evening in early spring, Kristen called me with news. "Mom, I got a promotion. They made me vice president of marketing." I smiled into the phone. "Sweetheart, that is wonderful. I am so proud of you." There was a pause on the line. "I wanted you to know that I did not get it because of you. I mean because of Horizon Ventures. I asked Mr. Mercer directly, and he said the decision was made before the party. He did not even know we were related until that night." "I know," I said. "I would never have used my position to influence your career. You earned this yourself." She was quiet for a moment. "Thank you for saying that. And thank you for believing in me, even when I did not deserve it." "You are my daughter," I said simply. "I will always believe in you." As the months passed, I began to live more openly as well. I told my neighbors about Horizon Ventures, though they barely believed me at first. I upgraded my wardrobe not to impress anyone, but because I finally felt comfortable being seen. I kept the house, though, and the old Camry. Some things do not need to change. What matters is not the car you drive or the house you live in. What matters is how you treat the people who love you. A year after the birthday party, Kristen turned 34. She did not want a gala. She did not want a 5-star hotel or 40 guests or vintage champagne. She came to my house instead. Just the two of us. She baked a cake from scratch using my old mixer and mismatched measuring cups. It was lopsided, and the frosting was uneven, but she was so proud of it. We sat in my little kitchen eating cake off paper plates, and she told me about her new apartment, her new job responsibilities, her hopes for the future. "This is the best birthday I have ever had," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone I recognized, someone who valued connection over status, someone who was finally becoming the person I always hoped she could be. "I am proud of you," I said. She smiled, and it was the real smile I remembered from her childhood, before money complicated everything, before she learned to be ashamed of where she came from. I glanced at the photo of Frank on my kitchen wall. He was smiling too, frozen forever at 51, never knowing what would become of his wife and daughter. We made it, Frank, I thought. We actually made it. If you are watching this and you have ever been treated like you do not matter by someone you love, I want you to know something. You have value. You have worth. Not because of what you own or what you can give, but because of who you are. And sometimes the people who hurt us need to see the truth before they can change. Not to punish them. Not for revenge, but but because truth has a way of clearing away everything false and leaving only what is real. My daughter and I lost many years. We cannot get them back. But we are building something new now, something based on honesty and respect and genuine love. If I could do it over, would I tell her sooner? Maybe. Probably. But I cannot change the past. I can only move forward. And forward, I have discovered, is a beautiful direction to go. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to teach someone you love a difficult lesson? How did you do it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story touched you, please give it a like. It helps more people find these videos and maybe helps someone else who needs to hear this message today. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories about family healing and the unexpected turns life takes. And share this with someone who might need a reminder that they are worthy of respect, no matter what anyone else thinks. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope wherever you are, whatever you are going through, you remember that your value does not depend on anyone else's opinion. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of the people who truly love you.